Happy Monday, everybody. Today for our daily devotional, I want to share with you something that I've read a bunch of times before, but man, I read it the other day and it just hit me in a really fresh way because of what we're going through. It comes from Matthew chapter 16, where Jesus had asked his disciples, hey, who do you say that I am? And they all have different theories. And then Peter speaks up and says, hey, I believe you're the Christ, meaning the Messiah. This is the first recorded profession of faith. He's saying he believes that Jesus is the anointed one sent by God to save his people. That's what that word Christ means. And then this is what Jesus tells Peter in response to this. He says in Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, he says, I tell you, you're Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Do you see what Jesus is saying there? That when Peter made his profession of faith that Jesus is the Christ, Jesus says, yeah, that is a rock. Believing that he is the Christ, believing in who he is, that's a rock. And the gates of hell can't prevail against it because the church is built on that rock. And so what happens is, as the gates of hell are trying to bar people, trying to keep people in, the church with the gospel keeps going forward and bashing down the gates of hell and taking inch by inch by inch away from Satan and his foes. Like nothing stops the progress of the gospel. And so as we're going through these hard times, man, this just filled me with so much excitement and faith, because I was thinking that even though life is tough, this promise is still true. It doesn't matter what gets shut down. It doesn't matter how bleak the economy is or what's happening in the healthcare system. This promise stays true, that the church with the gospel is still prevailing against the gates of the kingdom of hell. Listen, ever since Jesus came, Satan has been running scared. So often we go through life scared and afraid, but we're not the ones who need to be afraid. No, we believe in the God who has conquered death, the God who has given salvation, and the God who is taking away from hell every single day. Satan's running scared. We have no reason to run scared as those who are following the victorious King. Nothing stops the advance of what God is doing. And this makes me think about, the great verse in Colossians chapter 1, verse 6, where it says the gospel is going forth around the world and it's bearing fruit, and this is why, Paul can write to the church in Philippians as he's in a jail and life is just going terrible for Paul. He says, hey, don't be discouraged. What's happening to me is actually serving to advance the gospel. See, because the church with the gospel is always advancing, then no matter what's happening to us, that does not stop what God can do through us. No matter what's happening to us, that cannot stop what God can do through us by the power of his gospel. And so, friends, it's really important that we understand that we're not the ones who are supposed to be running scared. No, we're the ones who are supposed to be taking ground. And the key to being a difference maker in life, the key to really being someone who's part of what God's doing, is that's what we're looking for. We're looking for, God, what are you doing? Show me how your kingdom is advancing, and then how do we just get on board with what God's doing? Like, I want to be part of this promise. I want to be part of the advance against the gates of hell. And so I want to see how during this unique season, during this unique time, how are you positioning the church with the gospel to go forward? Like, what are you doing in this unique way, in this unique season? And then I want to get on board with that. Because when we see what God's doing, and then we join him in it, man, that's how we are able to make a difference in this world. Listen, there are tons of things that can prevail against us, right? There's tons of fortresses and barriers that we'll never be able to get through, right? Right now, we're all running up against stuff that, it doesn't matter how much we don't like it, we can't change what's happening. There's tons that can prevail against us. But there's nothing that can prevail against the advance of the gospel. And so the question is, are we going through life just with our agenda, trying to get our stuff done? Or are we going through life really looking to the Lord and saying, God, here I am, use me. I don't want to bring my agenda. I want to be part of your agenda. I tell you what, you start praying about that. You start praying for God to show you and ways that he wants to use you, you keep asking God, Lord, show me what you're doing, and I want to join you in it. Man, that's a prayer that sends Satan running scared. And so, friends, I'd encourage you right now that in this time where there's so much uncertainty, let's be really, really clear on one thing. The gospel is still advancing. And so how does God want to do that through you? What is the Lord doing right now in your family, in your workplace, in your neighborhood? What are ways that you can get on board with what God's doing and serve to advance his gospel? Because this gospel is advancing no matter what. And so the only question is, are we going to join God in that advance, or are we going to still hold on to our own agendas? I'd encourage you to pray, Lord, show me how you want me to use me. Do that. And man, life is about to get really exciting for you because God is on a mission and his mission has not stopped.